Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Dr. Azman Bidin. I'm from the Faculty of Language Studies and Human Development, University of Malaysia, Kelantan. Today I'm going to present to you my paper with the title of Muhyiddin Yassin'S Effective Public Speaking Style and its Effect on Leadership Brand. Let's begin with the introduction. Public speaking is a communication to a larger group of audience in order to influence, persuade, apprise, stimulate or amuse this audience. Effective public speaking, or EPS, is a critical factor to become a very efficient and successful leader. EPS, if not the most, is one of the most important key to great leadership. Leaders who communicate effectively to encourage and stimulate their followers are regarded as best leaders or best managers. Still on the introduction, I'm going to talk about the 8th Prime Minister of Malaysia, who is Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. He was appointed as the Prime Minister on February 29, 2020, and his style of leadership seems to be less talkative, very minimal political, and rarely criticized his opponent. His job at that time was to combat COVID-19, which became very serious during his tenure as a Prime Minister. It was well known during his leadership. The crisis was seen to be based on local wisdom, the way he handled the crisis. He, however, had to tender his resignation on August 16, 2021, due to political situation at that time. Next, let's talk about the problems. There is a strong relationship between EPS and leadership brand, as studied in 2017 by Wine. A person who have positive leadership brand will have more options and more opportunities to get more followers. EPS is one of the best marketing tools that can be used to increase leadership brand, as studied in 2019. In our country, however, there are not many studies performed on the relationship between EPS and leadership brand among Malaysian leaders. The objectives of this study, we have two objectives. The first one is to determine the dimensions of EPS in textual speech. We are focusing on the 8th Prime Minister of Malaysia. The second objective is to explore the effect of dimensions of EPS towards building a leadership brand. These are two objectives of the research. The methodology adopted for these studies uses purposeful sampling. These are based on the speeches made by the Prime Minister for the first 100 days of his premiership and also the last 100 days of his premiership. We selected 2 speeches from the first 100 days, 2 speeches from the last 100 days. Based on these speeches, we analyzed them using thematic analysis, and we also had a session with Mr. Zulkifli Bakar, a journalist who has been following the Prime Minister from the beginning of his premiership until the end. Based on the thematic analysis conducted on the 4 special addresses of the Prime Minister, it was found that there are 3 dimensions found in each of the special addresses. There are logos, which is persuading the audience through strong arguments, ethos, persuading the audience through speaker's credibility, and pathos, persuading the audience by arousing emotions. All these 3 dimensions were found in the speeches of the Prime Minister. The finding of this research, although we found that the dimensions of logos, ethos, and pathos was found in all the speeches by the Prime Minister, but this dimension did not affect the leadership brand of the Prime Minister. He did incite emotions, he had some credibility in his speeches, and it is concluded that the leadership brand, which is Abah, the meaning of the word Abah is like a fatherly figure, which was created by the team from the beginning of the premiership, was not affected by the dimensions of EPS. As for the discussion, we can say that all dimensions of EPS existed in every special addresses by the Prime Minister. However, during the interview session with the journalist, Mr. Zulkifli Bakar, it was concluded by him that there is no relationship between the mention of EPS and his leadership brand. This finding contradicts with the previous studies by Anderson and Wine. So we recognize these studies to have some limitations. The study only focused on 4 selected speeches by the Prime Minister, and we only had the opportunity to interview one journalist to give his opinion about the relationship between the dimension of EPS and a Prime Minister's leadership brand. That is the end of my presentation for this International Conference on Ummah 2022. Thank you so much for your attention. Hope to see you again in the next 2 years. Assalamualaikum and bye-bye.